Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah. Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah.
Alhamdulillah, wa salam Allah, wa rasulullah. Welcome to another session of our Sunnahfollowers Hadith class. And these are the Hadiths that we are studying from the book compiled by Sheikh Muhammad Saeed Atli entitled Live Longer with Less Time. And let's put the Hadith up for discussion tonight. And this is the fourth night of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, we're almost done with the first week of fasting. So let's see what this hadith brings to light for us. This hadith is narrated by Abu Umamah. He said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever leaves his home in a state of purity to go to the mosque for prayer, he will receive a reward like a person who prepares for the Hajj pilgrimage, which is what we discussed in another hadith as well. Also, whoever leaves to come to the afternoon prayer for no reason except to pray, he will receive a reward as if he made Umrah. A prayer followed by another prayer with no idle talk between them will be written in the heavenly scrolls of Allah. So again, this is another hadith, and it seems like all the hadiths that we've been discussing for the past several days, you can see that Sheikh Muhammad Saeed Atli, he was putting a lot of emphasis on men coming to the mosque. And this is a big problem nowadays. We're living in the days of fitna, whereas we talked about how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the last thing that will disappear amongst us is the prayer. And we see that happening. The mosques are empty. Men are using COVID as an excuse when COVID's not going anywhere. All you have to do is take your vaccinations, put your mask on, and go to the mosque and pray. Okay? The vaccinations are not a cure, but they do help. People who have contracted COVID after being boosted, they tell you that it's nothing more than like having a cold, a head cold. So that we need to stop using COVID as an excuse to not perform our obligations. And I'm talking about the men, because again, all the hadiths that you read that speak about the virtues of praying behind the imam at the mosque are for the men of this nation. The women receive more reward praying at home by herself. Okay, so again, but what makes this hadith stand out over the others we discussed is the second part about the afternoon prayer. The afternoon prayer, whoever leaves and comes to the mosque for the afternoon prayer, and this afternoon prayer is the Asr prayer. This is speaking about the Asr prayer, not Dhuhr, but Asr. If you go to the mosque to make your Asr prayer, you will receive the reward of having made Umrah. And why is it that this prayer is not the Dhuhr, but it's Asr? Because Asr comes in the middle of the day. Right when the men are at work working. Most people don't get off from work until 6 in the evening. The Asr prayer is before that. You have to stop your work, stop whatever you're doing, and go to the mosque to pray. Allah knows what a hardship that is. So that's why Allah put the reward of Umrah to it. He attached a reward of Umrah to it, to try to encourage you brothers to leave your job, go make salat, make the Asr prayer, and then go back, and then sign off work, okay? So this is another wonderful hadith, and I want you brothers to look at again. If you go to the mosque to perform your prayers, you will get the reward of a person performing Hajj. And if you go for the afternoon prayer, which is the Asr prayer, you'll get the reward of Umrah. And if you stay and happen to stay for the next prayer, like say you go to the mosque, remember we talked about how the time between Asr and Maghrib is not that far apart. So if you were to stay at the mosque until Fajr and not indulge in any useless talk, then this will be written down in the scrolls of Allah for you. So again, Allah loves it when we set our worldly affairs aside just to focus entirely on Him. And also we see the virtues of the Asr prayer if it's offered daily. And again, another wonderful hadith encouraging men to go to the mosque to perform your prayers and to make the mosque and praying at the mosque a priority. Okay, so now that I've just spoken about this hadith, how does it impact you in your personal life? Who would like to share?
It's a very good hadith, and it hits so many spots. I don't know where to begin, but I'll just say that it allows us to see how important the Asa prayer, sometimes called the middle prayer, is, and how it's very important because it's a time of day where everyone is busy. So even if you're a wife and you're at home, you're busy with the children, you're cooking dinner because your husband's going to come home, and you know, to stop, for her to stop what she's doing and make Asr is a blessing. But the brothers, you know, they may be coming home from work, or they may be whatever they're going to do. For him, it's a great reward to go to the masjid at Asr and make salat there. And it's the same as if he was making Umrah. And there's a lot of blessings in that, a lot of blessings. And it's another prayer too, for him to go, he gets, the brother gets a lot of blessings for just going to the masjid to make salat. And he should try to always make his obligatory prayers at the masjid if he can, because there's so many blessings in that. It's as if he had gone on Hajj, even though he's at home, you know, and wherever he lived. And it's a lot of blessings in that. And it's just, I'll let somebody else go on because I'm talking too much, but it's for the man too. One more thing for the man too, if he does go to the masjid, make Asr, for him to sit there and not, you know, just be gossiping or talking or hanging out with somebody, just to be sitting there quietly and waiting for the Maghrib prayer, which is very close to Asr. It's a lot of blessings in that too.
Thank you for sharing that, Sister Sabrine. Yes, Brother Murad, let's hear from a brother here. Brother Murad, what do you think about this hadith? How does it impact you?
Alhamdulillah, this is a good hadith, and hearing about the rewards and the virtues of going to the mosque, it makes it like much easier to attend. And now that it's Ramadan, the masjids are kind of full, but once Ramadan is over, then it's kind of like a different story. But something I would tell like people or the women who have sons is that take them to the mosque when they're like young, so that when they grow up, it'll be like much easier. They wouldn't find it like as difficult or anything. Yeah.
SubhanAllah, he's brought out a good point. You know, you women, look at the rewards you get for training your sons, doing like Sister Awa did. Awa said the other day, she told her husband, go to the mosque and do Taraweeh, and hey, take your sons too. So mashallah, this is training your sons to go to the mosque to pray. And every time your son, even when he's a grown man, every time he goes to the mosque to pray, even when you are dead, that reward will go to you. That's called ongoing charity, because you taught your son, you trained your son to perform those prayers at the mosque. So this is something, like Brother Murad said, that the sisters need to do as mothers. Encourage your sons to go to the mosque to perform their prayers while they're young. So it's a habit by the time they're older, and this will be ongoing charity for you. Good job, Brother Murad. Yes, Sister Aisha, go ahead.
Yes, just like how everyone said, I would say, you know, this is a beautiful hadith to reflect on for especially the brothers, you know. Just imagine like the reward you will get, and it's even more during Ramadan too, you know. What more can you ask for? That it's a double reward. So take that time and, you know, go do those prayers, because if it's like a reward as like going to Hajj, you know, what more just what more do you need, you know? So just tell your, like everyone said, just encourage your male relatives, hey, you know, go and do this prayers. If you can't do the morning one, do the afternoon one, the Asr one, because some people they have if they can't make it to the morning ones, they're off from work during the Asr prayer, you know. So you can go for that one, and it still will count as the reward, like the morning one would. And North I want to speak too, so I'm gonna give it to her so she can speak too.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I wanted to add to this is like I've just recently seen something on social media where they had the men were out praying at like New York Square, you know, that New York place where they have all those ads and stuff. They had all the men there praying for a prayer. I don't know what prayer, but I was very confused because I'm like, the mosque is empty. Why are y'all not praying at the mosque, but y'all choosing to pray where it's a noisy street place? And he has ads of naked women and stuff. And I'm like, what is going on? And just reminded me of what the prophet said, you know, the mosques will be left empty. And they're like praying in places. I'm like, instead of praying in places like that, why don't you just go ahead and pray at the mosque? The mosque is empty. Hello? So it makes me think, I'm like, what are the men of this nation doing today? What's going on? So that's what I take from it.
Allah, and I'm glad you caught that. My students caught that. And I want everybody to notice this is the talk of America right now. Those men were performing the Taraweeh prayer in Times Square. And this was supposed to be a historic event. It's being posted up all over the internet. The first time ever, the first time of innovation. The Taraweeh prayer should have been performed inside the mosque. And like she said, and everybody is thinking this is such a great deal. I don't know who came up with the idea to take the men away from the mosque and put them on Times Square in the middle of traffic. Remember, the prophet said, what's the hadith we went over last week? The prophet said, your prayer performed in private is more rewarding than in the public. This is remember that hadith? By the way, is Amina Fresno here. Amina Fresno, remember when we went over that hadith and you said, what is this talking about? This is an example. You know, when we do prayers in the public like that to get the attention of man, no longer are we praying for Allah. Instead, we're praying for fame. As those men were performing the Taraweeh, people were standing there taking pictures of them, naked women everywhere, people walking by looking. This was not done for the sake of Allah. Whoever had that idea did it just for the fame. And he's going to have to answer to Allah for that, because the Taraweeh should be performed at the mosque behind the imam. All of these prayers talk about performing at the mosque, not outside in Times Square of all places. There's more people, more traffic, more televisions, more noise, more disturbances on Times Square than any other place in America. So who came up with this nonsensical idea? And it's supposed to be a great innovation? Good bida hasana? No, this is a bad innovation. Because the people that participated in it, how many of them were doing it for the sake of Allah? And how many of them were doing it to be seen? We have to be careful, guys. Remember, the prophet said the prayer will disappear from the earth. And it's happening. The Quran will disappear. Another one of the signs of the last hour, the Quran will disappear. What does that mean? That means the people will forget it. They will no longer live by it. Those men praying on Times Square is a good example of the Quran disappearing. What did Allah say? Did Allah say frequent Times Square? Did he say pray in the streets, or did he say pray at the masjids? Did Allah say that the streets are the houses of Allah, or did Allah say that the masjids are the houses of Allah manned by the believers? So while all those hundreds of men were performing Taraweeh in the streets, who was in the mosque? Who was performing Taraweeh at the mosque? And believe it or not, guys, there's a lot of masjids near Times Square. You know how many masjids are in that area? A whole bunch. So everybody decided to leave the mosque and go make a public scene to be seen by the public instead of being seen by Allah. I want you brothers and sisters to think about that, because a lot of you have shared that video to your Facebook page, and you thought it was a great thing to share. Was it really a great thing to share, or was it you sharing the evidence that Allah speaks the truth when he says the sunnah will become strange, the sunnah will become abandoned, it will be replaced by people's desires for this world? Okay, go ahead, Sister Zaida.
So I thought this to be like very yeah, it was definitely a beautiful hadith, mashallah. And I think for me it just made me think of how merciful and how generous Allah truly is, because just the fact that I didn't even know that was news to me, that the fact that when the brothers pray all of their salats in the mosque, it's as if, you know, he's made Hajj. That was a beautiful thing to me. And it's like, it just made me think of how generous, you know, Allah is, and just show how beautiful this religion is. It's mashallah, it's beautiful. I have like, that's all I really wanted to say. I have no other words, but.
And that's good. And that shows, so these brothers, think about those men praying on Times Square. They threw away the reward of Hajj. You giving up the reward of making Hajj and Umrah just so you can be on the camera and say, alhamdulillah, first time ever. Okay, I guess the first person that enters the hellfire will say the same thing. First time ever. Hey, take a picture of me in hell. First person in hell. You know, you want to get a picture of the first time. A lot of the first times will land you a seat in hell. You brothers who did that Taraweeh on the street, when the prophet said the prayer of a man in private brings much more reward and is better than a man who prays in public. So you brothers lost the reward of Hajj. You threw it down the toilet just so you can get your picture in time on the cover of a Times magazine with naked women in the background, people eating pork walking by, people who ain't even Muslims looking at you, cameramen standing in front of you. You know, think about that, just to get your picture taken. And now we ain't even gonna talk about the intentions. Were the intentions to please Allah or to please Time magazine? Okay, any other comments?
The only comment I wanted to add, Miss Layla, was also, it made me think of, I was like, how did they have, you know, khushu at this moment of the prayer? Because, you know, we all know New York and how busy and how loud the place is. So how was your khushu during prayer? And then, like, I was like, what's going on? And I'm like, if we're going to follow the sunnah of the prophet is to pray somewhere when it's like the Eid prayer, you know? So all the people who can't pray, like the woman can come pray. I mean, not come pray, but like come see, you know, the people praying. That's the sunnah of the prophet. We're going to follow the sunnah. We need to follow it the right way, not start making our own, you know, innovations and stuff. So that's just one thing I also liked to add.
Yeah, that's what I said. And that's the same way I felt about those men with that airplane. You know, that was all on the CNN news. You know, you bringing all this unnecessary attention to us about our prayers when you're violating the sunnah. The sunnah is you could have combined your prayers before you left home. You didn't have to go to the airport to do what you did, knowing that it's 9/11 just happened. How stupid. Do you think the prophet would have condoned you doing that? Do you think the prophet would have condoned people praying in Times Square with all that distraction, all that noise, all that filth, not to mention the people that smoke cigarette smoke blowing there, all the pollution? Exactly. You know, women walking past you in they non-Muslim clothes. You think the prophet would have sat there and applauded that and said accolades? No, he would have said, what a fool you men are. What have you done to my sunnah? Who's manning the masjid while you're standing out in Times Square? Who's at the mosque? The mosque is the house of Allah, not the street.
And I also want to add something to it.
Yes, go ahead.
So seeing them, that also says a lot about their character too. So you can tell like whether they know their sunnah or not, you know what I mean? Because if you know the most beloved place, you know, to Allah is the mosque, why would you even go there in the first place, you know?
That shows, guys,
So,
most Muslims don't know the religion. That's why I tell y'all, be careful who you look at, who you listen to. Even some of the videos I'm playing, I got these videos I'm playing during the month of Ramadan. And a lot of them, most of them are great, especially the lectures of Khalid Yassin. They're wonderful. They're great. You know, the lectures of Mufti Mink, they're great. Okay, but there are some other brothers who I don't know or never heard of, who have the English accents. I caught a couple of their lectures that are not great, saying that things are haram that Allah didn't say is haram. I can bring evidence from the companions saying that these things are not haram. You know, so we have to be careful in this day and age of who we listen to, who we take our knowledge of Islam from, because most Muslims on earth today do not know the Sunnah. The Sunnah has become abandoned in this day and era. You know, just something that looks good. Remember, the prophet said one of the signs of the last hour is things will appear to be good, but in reality, they are bad. That praying on Times Square, that may look to be a good thing, but it's not. It's not. When you read these hadiths, it's not. The prophet didn't go pray out in the street. They went to the mosque. All these hadiths are talking about the masjid. They're not talking about now when you go to make Hajj and pray at the Prophet's mosque in Mecca, there's so many millions of people that we all can't stand together. So some people are in the street. That's different. But there is no mosque right there on Times Square. You know, there's a lot of mosques around there, but where these brothers were praying was not in a mosque. They weren't standing outside a mosque. They were standing on a street, a very well-known street for the attention of the cameraman. It was probably a planned event. It was stupid. It was not.
and I don't know if you guys been to Times Square. It's also dirty and trashy too.
Yeah,
it's like
dirty,
crowded
trashy, cigarettes,
yeah,
marijuana smoke. Hey, they even smoked the pipe on Times Square.
yeah, it's too much.
You know, all the noise, the pollution, the traffic, the people.
Yeah, it's just nasty.
Subhanallah. Why would you leave the mosque for that? For Taraweeh? Are you crazy? Yes, go ahead, Brother Mike.
For me, this hadith, it gives me extra motivation to go to the mosque. And maybe for the man, we can plan earlier. So let's say if I want to go to eat or drink with my wife and kids, but instead of going at Asar time or Zuhur time, we plan before that we are gonna eat before or after that time. Yeah, that's
exactly. That's what, and see, Brother Mike lives in Malaysia. You know, that's what a person of intelligence, a person that believes in Allah, a person that wants to preserve and protect and live the Sunnah would do. Like he said, they would plan their meals around the time for prayer. And that's something that I hope you sisters are doing. You know, we cook our dinners, you know, for the people to break the fast. Okay, there's enough time for the brothers to break the fast, but then go to the mosque. Go to the mosque, perform your prayer, perform your Taraweeh, you know, and then come home and we can sit down together and enjoy our meal together as a family. That's something we're gonna talk about tomorrow. You want to plan your life around Allah. Don't try to plan Allah around your life. You know, and this hadith encourages that. When you look at this wonderful hadith, let's put it back up here again, where the prophet is saying, if you leave your home with wudu just to go to the mosque to pray, you will receive a reward of a person who prepared himself and went for the Hajj pilgrimage. And then to go to the mosque to perform the Asr prayer, you get the reward of making Umrah. And a prayer followed by another prayer with no talk between them is written in the books of Allah, subhanallah. That means to stay, because there is another hadith where the prophet explains that even more. To go to the mosque, to pray behind the imam. And then you sit there and you stay there waiting for the next prayer. The prophet did not say standing out in the Times Square. He said the mosque, the mosque, the mosque. The mosque is the place of worship for the man. We need to take these hadiths to heart, guys. We need to stick to the Sunnah. Stop trading the Sunnah. Whenever we trade the Sunnah for something else, it leads to nothing but chaos. That's why our marriages are nothing but chaos. We end up in divorce because we're not getting married the way the prophet taught us to. Instead of us doing it the way through our families, we are now using dating apps. We're doing it like the kafir. So we've inherited the kafir's chaos. The same with praying. When you substitute the masjid for a well-known street and cameras, there's nothing but chaos. You don't receive these rewards. The reward of Hajj, the reward of Umrah. You're just receiving recognition in this world. Remember, guys, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about the first group of people that will be dragged by their faces and thrown in hell because they did the deeds for fame, to show off, and not for the sake of Allah. You don't want to be one of those people dragged by your face and thrown in a hellfire because you were a show off. You organized a prayer, the Taraweeh prayer, to be held outside in the street on Times Square, when you should have been organizing the Muslims to come to the mosque. There's hundreds of mosques in New York. You should have been organizing the Muslim brothers to go to the mosque and pray behind Imam Siraj. You know, Imam Siraj's mosque is in New York. You could have went to his mosque. You could have went to Malcolm X's mosque. There's so many mosques you could have organized the brothers to come and pray at, instead of organizing them to pray in the middle of Times Square with all that filth and pollution, just so you can get your ugly face on TV. And I do mean ugly. Think about it. All right, I want to thank everybody for joining and participating in this session of our Hadith class. I want you guys to see how the Sunnah is becoming strange, how the Sunnah is becoming abandoned, how the Sunnah has become replaced with man's desires, man's fame, and all of that garbage.
Can I add to that?
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So this hadith also, reminds me that it's not just about, it's not just for the men, because also for the women, or for everybody in general, you try to, live your life around Allah, not like, the opposite. Because I know, I remember when I first got into the medical field as a nursing and all that stuff, I was doing the opposite. Then I realized, once I started revolving my life around Allah, it got so much easier, and it started praying on time. So that's the main thing. Also, it's not just about like just the man going to the mosque praying there. I think as a woman, also this idea you can take from it that you should always pray on time, regardless what you're doing. You should always try to have time for Allah. You know what I mean?
Exactly. When you guys, sisters, are doing your shopping out at the malls, schedule your shopping around the time of the prayer, not the time of prayer around your shopping. And like she said, as a professional nurse, mashallah, nurses are really needed today, especially in this day and era. And look at how there's a lot of Muslim sisters who are nurses, and they have no problem taking care of their job, and they also take the time to perform their prayers within their time frame too, while they're also servicing the people they are entrusted to service on the job. Everything, guys, we need to center our lives, around Allah, not try to make our Allah stand there. And we need to center our lives around Allah, not think that we can make Allah center himself around us. This is a form of arrogance. This is how Iblis was. This is what caused Iblis to get kicked out of paradise. Yeah, so think about that. So when you guys see those videos about men praying in the street, doing Taraweeh in the street, before you clap and say accolades, what a good thing. Ask, wait a minute. This is Taraweeh prayer. What happened to the mosque? Oh my God, the reward of praying Taraweeh behind the Imam is the reward of Hajj. What are you doing replacing the mosque with the filth of the street? You just lost the reward of Hajj. You just lost the reward of Umrah because you want the fame of this world. You've traded this world. You chose this world over paradise. Think about that before you clap your hands when you see something that's done in opposition to the Sunnah. All right. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.